I saw it firsthand in Monaco, right? It didn't matter. We could bring in the best player in the world. If he wasn't focused and if Monaco was turning his head, that best player all of a sudden becomes a bad player very, very quickly. And so we need to make sure that it's that balance. It's the right footballer, but it's also the right person.
Okay, let's welcome him into the show. 33-year-old superstar sporting director from San Diego FC, Tyler Heaps. By the way, not only setting records on that side of the game, also getting married to number 10 from the U.S. Women's National Team, Lindsey Horan. He's like Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, right? That's all popping off. Tyler Heaps, thank you for joining us and Call What You Want. Great to see you. How are you doing?
Does that make me Taylor Swift then? Because
I don't know, actually. I really thought that through.
They're both rock stars at the moment.
Exactly. We got rock star status for both you and Lindsey, of course. So big days ahead. Appreciate you spending some time with us. You got free agencies starting right now. You had the expansion draft. You got a lot of things cooking in San Diego FC. How are you doing personally?
Yeah, it's going well, to be honest. It's an exciting time for the club. It's a lot of work, don't get me wrong. And I think whenever you play a card, that impacts all the other cards. So we're just trying to get the right people in house. That's only from a staff standpoint, but also from a player standpoint. And we're going to have a lot of announcements coming very soon, but it's also full of excitement. We've got a jersey coming out tomorrow. We've got players coming into market after the holidays. We've got a training ground being built by the second. So we're really excited to get in front of the fans.
So I want to say over the past 5-6 years, we've had, expansion sides come in and do particularly well, where in the past it usually wasn't the case. Is there a model that you follow that you say, okay, that's the example we want to maybe not copy, but emulate?
I think we did a lot of analysis of the last expansion sides, because to your point, there's been some really good and successful ones, and there's been some not so good and successful ones that have now been able to turn that around. So I think from our side, it's about finding the balance. I don't think we'll match any one of those. We're also a bit unique in terms of coming in as a part of a bigger organization of Right to Dream. So we have the foundation set in place, but we also know that it's the most unique league in the world. And we can't come in with the standpoint of we're going to do exactly what we've done in Denmark, for example, because it just wouldn't work here. So we need to make sure that we stay true to our principles, but we also are flexible in the sense that we're coming into this league with the rules that it has and with the travel schedule and everything else that goes with it. And we need to make sure that we do what we think is the best for us.
So, Tyler, I had the opportunity to travel to Accra in Ghana in 2014 ahead of the World Cup. U.S. was playing them in our group, and I did a trip to visit all those countries. And I got to sit down and hang out and see Right to Dream in Accra with Tom Vernon, the founder of the academy. And I haven't spoken to him in many years, but fantastic guy. It's incredible to see how much it's grown and how it continues to grow. And now it's here in MLS and in our backyard. Really exciting times. Talk to us about Right to Dream and its ultimately its mission statement and how that is going to permeate through your first team.
Yeah, I think it's why I'm here. I think it's why a lot of people are in this organization. First and foremost, the people are unbelievable. I mean, when you go to that facility in Ghana, like it really just level sets everything. It shows you that life is about a lot more than winning and losing on the next day. Just because you see what those dreams of those players there. It's the same now in Egypt as our location just outside of Cairo. And I think it embodies what we want. First and foremost, the values that we're driven by, the people that we bring into this organization. We believe in young players. We believe in all players. And I think you'll see that. And hopefully we're able to do that here in MLS. We'll hopefully have a pathway very quickly of our own academy where you can see these kids that have grown up in this Baja region, who a lot of them have had a ton of success, but have had to leave San Diego to get it. We want to be a pathway where these kids are able to see themselves come into the game. And I think we'll hopefully be able to do that in the coming years.
Tyler, I always find it hard to balance youth and giving them the opportunity to play and develop with winning, because for a fan base, it's one thing, like the Philadelphia Union, for instance, you're accustomed to seeing youth come through the system, but at the same time, you want your team to be able to compete and win. So how do you find that balance? Is there a one size fits all? Like, how do you go through your mind in DPs? I mean, obviously you already have Chucky Lozano, but the rest, and how do you position your team to develop, but also maybe compete for an MLS Cup?
Yeah, I think the word balance is really key in how you even explain that, right? So I had the opportunity to be at Monaco, where I think we had a ton of success doing this. And it's about the talent that's coming through. And I think it's about not only the talent and preparing them as quickly as possible, but it's also giving them that opportunity. And I think our head coach, Mikey, says it well, of these guys will surprise you. I think sometimes the people, you can watch a training session, you can realize, oh, we don't think this guy's ready. But sometimes when the lights turn on and you kind of roll the ball out there, you know this, right? These young players sometimes really do surprise you, and they show you that their level is that much higher, and they're willing, because sometimes they're willing to take risks. They're willing to do things that some of these veterans might not be able to do. So for us in year one, it's really important to get that balance right. So we'll have guys like Irving Lozano, who obviously we have a lot of expectations for, and the expectations are that he comes to this league and he succeeds. But it's also about him putting his arm around the next guy and saying, Tommy Angel, and saying, hey, we're in this together, right? How do I make you successful? How do you help me be successful? So we need to create that culture within the locker room, and we need to make sure that we're both pushing in the same direction. And it doesn't matter if somebody's 18-year-old or they're 25 and later in their career.
So, Tyler, I'm going to be honest. If Big Tones, but Tony Miola was on here with us, I would joke that you are young enough to be his son, which I think is true ultimately, just to bust his balls about being.
Oh, don't age him out like that.
Okay, yeah, sorry, he's not even here to defend himself. But do you feel more pressure making history as the youngest sporting director, or are you just like, whatever, age is a number? I know what I am and what I do, and you know the proof's going to be in how I put together this team.
I think pressure's a privilege, right? I think there's pressure in any role. And I think this is a huge opportunity. Everybody saw the price tag of what this franchise is, right? And our expectations are to come into this market, which has been crying out for probably an MLS team for a long time. And it's to be successful. It's to be successful right away. But we say it here a lot. We want to win. That's our goal. We're in sport, right? We have to fill a stadium that's 32,000 people plus. We're coming into a market that's competing with the Padres, obviously, and they're diehard fans here in terms of sports. But how we win and who we win with really does matter. So I think in this league, we need to make sure that we set ourselves up for sustained success. And when you're in a salary cap league and you see the list of expansion players, yeah, there are unbelievable footballers on that list. Don't get me wrong. But we need to make sure that we're taking players to make us successful in year one, but also allowing us to be successful in the years to come. And I think that's where our academy and our pipeline and the players that we bring in are really important for us and keys to that.
Tyler, let's be real. You have you're in a situation that clubs wish they were in. You have San Diego. My parents live in San Diego. My brother went to San Diego State. It's a dream location. So in terms of attracting talent, that'll be easy for you. But I think it'd be important to give perspective for fans, because obviously when you see the price tag of what it took San Diego to come into the league, I think the expectations are you can go get a Cristiano Ronaldo if you wanted. You can go and get a Lamine Yamal if you wanted, right? Is that a possibility? Would the club be willing to spend a large amount to attract maybe a big time star? Or is this we're going to play it safe. We're going to keep a small budget, not that you're going to be the Philadelphia Union, but they don't splash the cash per se.
I'll tell you what, it's a really attractive market until they go on Google and they figure out what the tax rate is. Then it becomes
that's a fact.
It becomes a little bit more challenging sometimes when you Google San Diego and the first one is most expensive place to live in the United States. But it also comes with massive amounts of perks. And look, I would love to be able to show all these players us playing like very attractive football. And I think I can't wait to get to that point because we believe in what we're doing here. And I think that stuff will start to attract more and more players, as you say. And I think, again, it goes back to the word balance. We will for sure be a destination club for players. We've had a number of players reach out to us that probably I never imagined being this age, talking to these players on the phone, trying to figure out if they actually want to come and play here in San Diego. But I also think that we need to, again, set ourselves up for success and make sure at the end of the day, our owners are businessmen. And so our job is to be as successful as possible with also not obviously splashing everything and making sure that we're going out and buying everybody, because that also won't be us.
I got to ask you, Tyler, because I think this is an important question too. So when you get on the phone, let's say you get on the phone with Kevin De Bruyne. Okay. He's saying, hey, I'm going to leave Manchester City. It's a debacle right now. I'd love to come in January, but I can wait till the summer. How do you know if this is a player that's going to give everything for the club, and not take that big paycheck and say, yeah, I'll play, but I'm not really in it. I'm not for this particular project. Like, how do you decipher what's real and what's guaranteed success in that way, even if they're not scoring 20 plus goals versus, hey, I'm here to just take a check and kind of
that guy needs a lot of sunscreen. If you get De Bruyne, Tyler, I'm just saying, bring the sunscreen for Kevin De Bruyne.
We got a partnership deal coming because these Danish guys, they also need it. But it's honestly, Charlie, it's the hardest question to ask. And we dealt with this in Monaco firsthand, right? Because we're also in a place that is really nice to be, and it's really easy to get complacent. It's why it's so impressive what Ricky's been able to do at the Galaxy, because they hit it out of the park with him. Because that guy, when you watch him play, he gives everything for the badge. And I think that's what's really important for us to make sure that we get these DPs right. And I think Irving is a good example. Like, Irving's calling me every day saying, I can't wait to get started. I can't wait to get started. And you saw whenever we announced him, like, there were 10,000 people there chanting his name. Like, I think it means more to him. And I think you need those people, especially in your DPs, where it means more, because you're creating a culture from scratch. And I think you see too many people that are going through the motion, and that's a ripple down effect to the guy that you draft out of college, right? You need to have those people at the top level that are motivated to be great. And I saw it firsthand in Monaco, right? It didn't matter. We could bring in the best player in the world. If he wasn't focused, and if Monaco was turning his head, that best player all of a sudden becomes a bad player very, very quickly. And so we need to make sure that it's that balance. It's the right footballer, but it's also the right person.
All right, let's talk a little bit about your past, because I'm very curious about this, and it's awesome. Head of recruitment and insights at the Right to Dream Academy, which we touched upon. Head of analysis and insights at AS Monaco, and then 6 years with U.S. Soccer as director of sporting analytics and head of analysis. So you take all that information and all that experience, and now you're wearing a different hat. How do you apply, or I guess, how do you prepare for what you're now doing, which probably involves different decision-making, or at least the responsibility of this is the decision-making than what you did in the past?
Yeah, I think I've always approached everything from a very analytical side of it. And it's the way I approach investing. It's the way I approach everything, right? So I try
to Moneyball in a way. Is it kind of like Moneyball?
Yeah, you could say so, but it's more like reducing risk, right? In a recruitment landscape, if you're going to sign a player, you want to reduce as much risk as possible. So you talk about their character, right? So you need to do your due diligence on that. You talk about the style of play you want to play. Can that player fit in the style of play? You talk about what the succession plan is. If you're going to get an Irving Lozano, who's that player behind him? That's why maybe Alex Mighton makes a lot of sense for us, because he's a player that had high potential. The A's had 2 probably poor loan stints, but now can we help him so that when Irving is ready to obviously move on, or whenever he's done his task here, so we have that next guy ready to go. So it's always about trying to think of that strategic lens of it. And I think that's what this sporting director role is, right? It's about not worrying about the next win. While that's important, that should be the coaching staff preparing that. It's about, how do I prepare this club for success well beyond even when I'm here? Because yes, I'm young now, but even I don't want to be in this role for the rest of my life, right? So it's, how do we set the club up for success, and how do we communicate with the business side and making sure that we're in alignment? How do we help support the season ticket holdings? Because that's also really important. So it's about overseeing all that sporting operations department and making sure that it's not just about what happens on Saturday and that impacts our entire week.
Along this career path that you've had, which has obviously been exceptional, what's been the biggest lesson you've learned?
Ooh,
and what's been maybe the lowest point throughout that process?
I'll tell you what, the lowest point was going into Soccer House the week after we missed the World Cup in 2018. That was probably the lowest point. I mean, I couldn't, going into that house, and I'm guessing, Charlie, you've been to Soccer House in Chicago on the South Side. Yeah. Like, going into that house on any day isn't sunshine and butterflies. But going into that house after that moment, that was like, poof. And again, I wasn't probably as directly involved with the men's national team at that point, but I was in conversation with the coaching staff quite often. But having to feel a part of that and the disappointment of it was a hard probably moment. And I'm glad then that obviously to see the rebound, and I didn't stay, because when COVID hit, obviously I found another opportunity in terms of, and went over to Europe. So I do think then probably the biggest learning curve, I'm trying to think if there was one moment, but more, it's just been about the great people that I've had the opportunity to work with. Like, I had an opportunity at Monaco to work with now the sporting director of Newcastle and the sporting director of Chelsea, like just trying to take on as much information as possible. I think why we love this sport is there's no blueprint of how to do it. The way Red Bull do it is completely different to how City Football Group do it. The way Brighton do it is completely different to the way LA Galaxy do it, right? So for us, it's about find something that you truly believe in and go execute on it. And I think that's the glory about this sport, is that there are so many ways to do it. And I've had a lot of lessons along the way of things probably I wouldn't do, and maybe things that I would do, and maybe non-negotiables, and also things that I'm really open-minded still, because this sport is changing consistently, and this league is also changing. So we need to stay on the forefront of that.
Tyler, we appreciate your time so much. We got one last question for you, and we want you to just be a fan on this one. Flo Balogun, Monaco, just got announced that he hurt his shoulder. He's going to have to get surgery. Are you still a fan of Monaco? I assume you are. You're still paying attention. Like, what do you think that means? Not only for Monaco, for our national team. It's crazy.
Massive. I told myself when I left that I would never watch them again, just because I don't know if you guys have been to Monaco. Unbelievable place, but that stadium like sucks the passion out of football, which is crazy because they don't get big fans. But like I was there when Aurelien Tchouameni was there, and I saw Aurelien whenever he could barely pass the ball back 10 yards without giving it away, and then I saw him hitting Rambotos across the field in Champions League games, and you're like, how is not this place full every single weekend? Like the level of talent and everything going through that is unbelievable. Flo was our last signing before I left. I actually got on the phone with Greg and had Greg try to help convince Flo to join us because obviously it was between a few others. And I think, look, he's come in and he brings a different dynamic. They got a lot of really, really good profiles. I've been watching their Champions League games. I know they just had a difficult result against Arsenal, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. Look, I know he's went through a little bit of up and downs when he's had his time at Monaco. You guys mentioned it before I joined, but he had a tremendous amount of success at Stade de Reims, and I think that success will only continue. And I agree wholeheartedly with you, Charlie. I think Ligue 1 gets a lot of knock, but it's an unbelievable league. There are so many good footballers. You look at, like you're talking about Gio Reyna, right? I think he fits right in at a club like Lille. Angel Gomez leaves Man United, goes to Lille. He's back in the national team for England. Like, people knock on it, but the profiles in that league, they're unbelievable. The young players that they've got, the athleticism of that league, I think it translates into the Premier League, and it's why a lot of these English clubs are going after that talent now. So absolutely. I hope he can get his feet back on track. I've been talking to the medical guy quite a bit too about Flo, so I've been trying to ask him what the deal is, but it's disappointing for the national team, but I have no doubt that he'll recover well.
Tyler needs to be on our show. You're like an honerary co-host. Call what you want anytime. Hey, that was great breakdown.
Hey, we had this big discussion on Gio. Would that be of interest with San Diego?
I'd take him in a heartbeat. If we can keep him fit, that guy is different level. He's just different to every other American player, right? And that's probably why I was such a big fan of Clint. And like, these guys are so motivated. Like, that guy is through and through. And Mikey knows him well, obviously, from the national team. And he had reached out to Mikey just a few weeks ago, and he said, "Oh, can you give me a call?" And I'm like, "Is there a chance?" But he was asking about he was telling me about a totally different player. So probably not for us at this stage.
Oh, man. You never know, though, right?
You never know.
Does some crazy things. Well, Tyler, thank you so much for your time. Good luck this season. Obviously, can't wait to see the new jersey and everything else you guys have coming down the pipeline. And it should be a lot of fun to see San Diego FC hit the field next year in MLS. Tyler Heaps, everybody. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate you.